everyone, and welcome to Thorough Newspaper Analysis, which is brought to you by LawSikho. Let's see which articles we will be discussing today. Firstly, great power, little responsibility. So this is from the Hindu, and this article talks about basically the role and responsibility that the media plays, and that in India how we should be properly curbing the hate speech, and how can we be able to achieve the right balance between hate speech, or curbing such kind of speech and content, and also ensuring that the people are given their freedom of speech and expression as well as their right to information. So this is also this article has to be covered with another article which is from the Indian Express, which is titled as A Slippery Slope. So it talks almost about the same thing, only the role of media, and that how much is it important for us to regulate in a positive manner the media, because keeping in mind the impact that this media has on our people. Thirdly, self-reliance for self-esteem. This is again from the Indian Express. This article talks about that what should be the probable or possible plan of action if we want to really achieve the idea of what we call ourselves of becoming Atmanirbhar Bharat or self-reliant India. So what could be the plan of action we'll be discussing in this article. Fourthly, select committees and other parliamentary panels role limitations. So as we know that there are some parliamentary committees, we have already discussed them, but today we'll be seeing them in a greater detail and more intricately. And then also there is another article which talks about the international peace, and how is it important, what is the role of the major countries in this world in the international peace. And then we have the news and flash, which is LawSikho's own initiative. So we have various courses for you at LawSikho. We have the Lord of the courses, which is the Judiciary Test Prep course. The link to this course is there in the description box. You can have a look at it. And also you can download for yourself free study material if you are also preparing for judicial services. We are very delighted to announce that now we are coming up with another series on our YouTube channel, which will be called as a synopsis of various social legal topics. And every Saturday we'll be uploading a video wherein the recent topics that are social legal will be discussed in that. Now let's see that what is the multiple choice question for the day. Rosh Hashanah is dash New Year. First, Hebrew. Second, Christian. Third, Tamil. Or fourth, none of the above. So which of the following community celebrates Rosh Hashanah, or they call their New Year as Rosh Hashanah? If you know the answer, do jot it down in the comment section below. Let's see that what is the descriptive question for the day. The rules of Parliament don't require every bill to be referred to a parliamentary committee for scrutiny. While this allows the government greater flexibility and the ability to speed up legislative business. Discuss in detail the role, functions, and significance of the parliamentary committees in light of the above statement. This is a very, very possible question that may come in the mains as well. So if you know this answer, you have to jot it down in 250 to maximum 300 words. With this, let's start with the first article for the day, which talks about the international system and peace. 21st September is observed as an International Day of Peace, to devote a day to strengthening the ideas of peace by observing 24 hours of non-violence and ceasefire. So basically, here also a very potential prelims question can be formed as to which day is observed as the International Day of Peace. So it is 21st of September, and it is simply devoted to be like giving 24 hours, observing 24 hours of non-violence and ceasefire. Ceasefire as in that we cease to attack on any other country, nation, person, etc. So the theme for this year is shaping peace together. Now let's understand that what is the current scenario of peace, or the global peace what we are talking about. Since it is the International Day of Peace, let's understand as to what is the situation of peace, or how well is the peace being able to prevail in various parts of the world. Last year, 8 countries suffered at least 1,000 deaths each to militarized attacks and battles. Afghanistan, Yemen, Syria, Turkey, Somalia, Iraq, Mexico, and Libya. So as we know that Afghanistan, so it's an Asian country, then Yemen, Syria, Turkey, Iraq, these are all in the Middle East, that is the Arab countries, and then we have Somalia and Libya, we have in Africa, and Mexico, as we know, we have in South America. So these are the countries that are, we can say, hotspots of the international disturbance, or where the peace is the biggest issue to be achieved in these countries. Over 25 countries are being ravaged by deadly wars even now. So these are the four areas. Maghreb and Sahel regions of North and Western Africa are still under war, and the people are the lives of common people or innocent people is still at the stake. 79.5 million displaced by the end of 2019, according to the UN Refugee Agency. So this was due to the armed conflicts, persecution, and other reasons. Persecution is simply when due to some ethnic reasons or some other reasons, maybe it could be religious reasons or anything, reasons, if one community or one kind of people, they are fought against by another community and they're thrown out of that particular region or area, that is called to be as being persecuted. So due to armed conflicts, persecution, and other reasons, 79.5 million have been displaced by the end of 2019, which is a very huge number. Let's understand that how the great powers are escalating violence. Now here by great powers, we mean countries like the United States of America, US, Russia, China, etc. So if we talk about the United States, so the tragedy in Yemen, which is the world's worst humanitarian disaster, it was actually because the United States of America had been supplying huge amounts of guns and armories in order to, just in the name of giving protection of security to these countries. But basically what happened was just all these wars that are going on in the Middle East and specifically in the area of Yemen. Then if we talk about Russia, so the Libya's descent into chaos is due to the participation of Russia because of active involvement of mercenaries and weapons pumped by Russia and US elite Gulf Arab monarchies. So basically here Russia also has a very important role to play. And then if we talk about China, ethnic violence and human rights abuse. So from South Sudan, Congo, Pakistan to Myanmar, here is something where China's role in providing or pushing out on the violence can be seen very significantly. So it is one of the top sellers of weapons and tightens grip over developing countries through internal security aid. So this is how China moves and tries to bring in violence into various countries to put on its own influence mostly in the developing countries. Now, these are the two core problems. Firstly, unjust international structure favoring the great powers. Now, here, just see, we can take example of any of the international bodies. Now, be it the United Nations, World Health Organization, World Trade Organization, or be it any other major international organizations. The biggest allegation that they have to face is that the order in which all of these are set up are in such a way, the order is in such a way that the ultimate decision is taken either in the favor of these huge powers that we are talking about as US, Russia and China, or if not in the favor, so at least it is highly influenced by what these countries want. And further, as we know that these also enjoy the seat of the permanent member in the United Nations Security Council, so obviously it is very likely that most of the decisions of the Security Council are drawn up in the favor of these countries. So this structure, which is very unjust in the international order, it should be brought down. And that is why, when we are contesting for a multilateral world or a multipolar world, and even now we know that India has again been chosen as a non-permanent member of the Security Council. So it is one of the agendas that India is looking forward to is multilateralism or multinationalism in the global order. So it is really important for us and also all the other developing nations as well, specifically to achieve this multiple polarity or multi-nationality in the world order, so that no kind of hegemony is created in favor of one or two nations for that matter. And that is why the solution is to struggle for an equitable world order. So this was all for this article. Let's discuss the second one, which talks about freedom of press and their responsibilities. Now, as we have discussed, that in India, media is considered to be as the fourth pillar of democracy. So here, that is why we can understand that what significant role media and social media, and specifically we talk about the media, that normal news culture that we're talking about, that plays is so significant. So the author also in this article says that the times that we were totally dependent upon print media and other slower forms of media has gone. So, but obviously, there is print media and other kinds of media as well. But the mostly accepted one also, we may say, or even the mostly most easily available one is also what we call as a normal on-air media. That is why we say that with the huge responsibility, or with throne comes the huge responsibility of bearing up to that throne. So similar is the case in the case of our press and media as well, that since they enjoy so much of public support and so much of broadcasting in the common people, they have huge responsibility to give the right information, and also to make sure that they do not disseminate any kind of hatred or any kind of intolerance amongst its viewers. As we know that last week the Supreme Court granted interim stay on the telecasting of the program UPSC Jihad of Sudarshan TV. So Sudarshan TV is one of the news channels. It had a program called as Bindas Bol. So now the broadcast of that particular show, Bindas Bol, has been put down, and it has been banned by the Supreme Court because it was trying to put up a program titled as UPSC Jihad, as to how this was obviously a very absurd thing to come up with. But yes, they were discussing in it about that how a Muslim community has been infiltrating. So obviously the word infiltrating already is a very negative one. So how is it infiltrating its own people in the Union Public Service Commission? So this was considered to be as targeting the entire Muslim community, which is a minority and also a vulnerable community in our country. And on the second side, what it was trying to do was bring in intolerism or even hatred towards the particular society. Also, it was seen that most of the facts, or many facts that were coming up in this program, they were actually twisted and were not at all based upon realities. Even the basic facts regarding the age or eligibility criteria for the candidates was also twisted in order to make it more dramatic. So the court analyzed the program in the context of our constitutional values of coexistence and communities. Now here a very beautiful line has been written in this article, that whenever we are trying to understand that whether to ban a particular thing or not, what we should consider it according to is not the societal morality, but the constitutional morality. So if there is something that just cannot stand on the grounds of your constitutional morality, that should be put down no matter what, and that should be considered to be illegal and anti-constitutional as well. So what we need to understand is that societal morality is something really very subjective. Something that is moral for me may not be for you. Something that is immoral for you may not be immoral for me. So this is something really very subjective when we talk about the societal morality. But when we talk about the constitutional morality, it is something that is set, everybody knows about it, and furthermore, everybody has agreed upon it being governed by the same constitution all over the territory. And that is why constitutional morality should be something that should be the driving force or the guiding force if you want to look into the correctness or the righteousness of any particular data or content. So when media functions in tandem with ruling class ideology, so the voice of dissent is not allowed any space in mainstream electronic media. Now, why are we really concerned as to what are the discrepancies that the media in India today is facing? So basically the voice of the dissent or the oppressed class is not really put up in the mainstream, just rather things that can bring in better TRP or just can create more of drama, they are mostly preferred by the news culture these days. Secondly, the outcome is biased because obviously that is why we talk about the thing that we come about the media trial also. Because obviously in a way, if the media or the media persons are supportive of a particular fact or are disapprove of a particular fact, so they actually give a biased outcome. Being in this culture, being in this world, the only responsibility of the media should be to put forward the true facts to the public. Now, be it good or bad, may they sound happily or not, may they sound good or not, positive or negative, whatever it is. The only good role that the media could play is that they put forward all these points, all these facts and arguments as it is in the front of the people, and then it should be up to the people and the informed citizenry of the country who should decide as to they want to support this particular stance or they want to disapprove of it. But the media should not itself come out to be as a code of law or something and come out with an outcome firstly, and that too a biased one is a disastrous effect. Thirdly, the bloodbath on such channels leads on an increasing TRP, enriching the business houses, and that is why it increases the advertising revenue. And lastly, serving the cause of a particular ideological mindset. Because obviously, if I am someone who is, for example, if I'm someone who is anti some religion, so if, but maybe I'm anti-Zoroastrian, or I'm anti-Muslim, or any other minority religion, or maybe if I'm anti-Hindu, and if I open up a news channel of my own, and then I try to broadcast and bring in programs that are of the similar ideology like that of mine, so this actually gives fan to my own ideology, which is definitely not good. And further, I am trying to propagate it further to the people and youth and innocent minds who will definitely develop their own ideologies watching my program that I am broadcasting. So that is why they actually end up serving a cause of a particular ideological mindset. Rather, on the contrary, the only cause that any media house should be serving is to bring forth the truth, that whatever it is. So here it is mentioned as to what are the responsibilities of media. So it says that it should ensure that all the point of views are heard for the public to be informed. Secondly, save young minds from being polluted, obviously. Thirdly, ensure no ideological mindset is served through the media. And fourthly, anchors do not fuel the agendas affecting the roots of India's democratic values. Now, when we talk about the free speech in media, free speech is not always free when fueled by commercial interests or compromised with governments. So basically, it means that free speech is something that actually gives the truth, and it should also be have an element of fair criticism. But definitely, it should not be something that you want to target somebody and then you want it to be covered under the freedom of free speech. So that definitely should not be the case. So reason for such compromises are the enormous funds required to run a TV channel, and when any particular entity, be it a private person or any other government agency, funds any news channel, so it tends to not raise question on the functioning of that very entity, and this is something that gives us with the biased opinion. So here are the solutions. Supreme Court may mandate setting up of citizens panel for TV channels, wherein it would decide whether programs conform to standards as prescribed by the court and carefully try to balance the freedom of press and their responsibility. So this is the next article for the day, which talks about the action plan for Atmanirbhar Bharat. Now, the COVID-19 pandemic has exposed India's dependence on several areas, and as we know that the trade and commerce worldwide has been hit significantly, and it was this time when we have realized that how much were we dependent for various trade or various import of various goods back to India, and that is why we came up with this concept of making ourselves self-reliant, which we also call as being Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan. So it was earmarked by PM Modi to be self-reliant. So India imports goods valued $65 billion from China alone, which actually is 14%, 14% of India's total import, and it is coming from China. And these are all essential items. So please keep in mind, these are nothing like, cosmetics or something that we can live without, but these are all the essential, mostly these are the essential items. And now imagine that India, as we know, is not really currently going through a very good relationship with China, keeping in mind the face-off that we are seeing in Ladakh and Galwan Valley, etc. Just imagine that this, God forbid, but if this situation worsens further, and China decides not to give any kind of imports to India. Now, how is India supposed to suffice or fill up this huge gap of $65 billion that would be created as one of the biggest dents on the Indian market? So that is why it is really important for India to be self-reliant in at least the essential commodities and not to be dependent on the countries for this kind of import. Then the pharmaceutical sector imports nearly 70% of its raw materials and drug intermediates. So basically, these are known as the APIs, and by APIs we mean active pharmaceutical ingredients. So basically, these are those raw materials that are essential for developing the final finished goods when we talk about the pharmaceutical sector. So as we know that though India is known to be as the pharmacy of the world for producing one of the best and the cheapest pharmacies or the pharmaceutical products or drugs in the whole world, but then again we need to remember that the very raw material for creating or producing these drugs that we call as the APIs or the active pharmaceutical ingredients are mostly by 70% they're imported from China, and then we further process it to complete or to give the complete or finished drugs. So this huge dependence on China for this raw material should also be brought down. Now, as we have discussed why self-reliant is important, so a self-reliant nation can serve the diverse needs of its population, but obviously, and it can contribute to the welfare of other countries as well with a sense of self-pride. So this is the proposed action plan. So this is something, please keep in mind, this is only a proposed plan of action. This is not something that the government has already taken up or government is already working upon. So this article has been written by an IS officer, and that is why the author has tried to put in a good plan of action, which according to the author is can be adopted if you really want to come up with this successful plan of making India self-reliant. So firstly, at the national level, the author says that an umbrella action plan should be drawn by the Niti Aayog, which we know as the official think tank of the government that actually makes or contributes hugely into various government policies. So an umbrella plan should be drawn up by the Niti Aayog, wherein listing of all possible categories of targets under the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan and vocal for local mission should be brought up. That what all are the things we should list them, that what are these are the important areas or categories in this mission. Secondly, a monitoring agency will review and provide the suggestions. So here, once this list is prepared, there will be a monitoring agency that will actually review this list and then it will provide its own suggestions. Then when we talk about the state level, each state or union territories needs to develop an action plan in consonance with the national plan of action. So just imagine that we have the biggest circle wherein we have the national level plan and this umbrella plan that covers the entire nation. Then a smaller one that comes into it further, which is for every state and union territory, that they come in consonance with this national plan and they make a kind of a local plan for depending on the needs of that particular state or union territories, and then a separate organization will implement this plan. And then for the district level, again, each district will work out a more detailed action plan, keeping in mind the very, very specific needs of the people residing in those particular district, that particular district or group of districts. So including a charter of responsibilities for ground level officers and departments, and the structure should be autonomous authority. So the authority should be autonomous to be headed by the DM, that is the district magistrate, or the technocrat to manage and pilot the implementation of the plan. So here remember that this idea is being brought up within an autonomous authority, which definitely would give more freedom of action and working to the authorities. Then scaling and setting up of certain numbers of companies with a set time period. Then 24/7 facilitation center to help existing and new companies, and then another group to lay out detailed norms and guidelines on safe working conditions. So this is a plan of action that can be adopted by the government in order to bring in the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan successfully. With this, let's discuss the next article for the day, which talks about select committees and parliamentary panels. Recently, the government passed two crucial agricultural bills in the Rajya Sabha, which have been so severely and so highly debated, and we have already discussed a lot upon them in our previous sessions. So rejecting the opposition demands to refer the bill to select committee. So basically the opposition had been demanding that the bill that now you have passed, and it has been finally passed by the Rajya Sabha, so this bill should be referred to the select committee scrutiny, and then only we should decide the final call. That is why it's important for us to understand as to what is the system of having the parliamentary committees. Basically, let's understand that what is the role of the parliamentary committees in the passage of a bill. The first mechanism to pass a bill is debate on the floor of the parliament. So actually, there are some different mechanisms as to how a particular bill can be debated upon. So the very general one, the very basic one that is followed is that simply a bill is introduced in either of the houses, and then on the floor, that is within the house, the bill is extensively debated. That is the most basic and the most important step that needs to be followed. So this is the first step that is done, that the debate is done on the floor of the parliament, simply in the house of the parliament. Then the second mechanism says by referring the bill to a parliamentary committee. So once a bill has been passed by the house, then this bill can be referred to a parliamentary committee for further discussion. So please remember that a first stage discussion must have taken place before that bill was passed in either of the houses, and then this referring to the parliamentary committee is a kind of second discussion upon that particular bill. So then it takes care of the legislative infirmity of debate. So here the parliamentary committee takes care that the discussion that was done on that particular bill was done keeping in mind the parliamentary or legislative limits of the debate, and it makes sure that it was not exceeded anyway. And then it was this is a very nice very nice words that were said by Woodrow Wilson, who was US president in 1885. He said that Congress in its committee rooms is Congress at work. So basically, as we know that there the parliament is known as the Congress, the entire house is known as the Congress. So it says that whenever the Congress, and if we talk about it in the Indian context, so whenever the parliament is making a discussion in the form of parliamentary committees, then we can say that now actually the parliament is at work. So basically, a parliamentary committee can be said to be when the parliament is set to work and actually debate and discuss and scrutinize a particular bill that has been passed. Now let's understand that what is a select committee. So there are two types of committees. Firstly, departmentally related standing committees, so which actually has the function of examining the bills, budgets and policies. And second is the joint parliamentary committee for specific purpose. So here, when does a committee examine a bill? So as we know that we have the joint parliamentary committee and then we have the standing committee. Standing committees are permanent in nature. They're always there. There are 24 standing committees and they are for every department. Departmental standing committees are there, provided for most of the departments. And then we have the parliamentary committee, that is this one that we are discussing is the joint parliamentary committees, that is done for a specific purpose, and even select committees are brought in for a particular purpose. Now, there are three broad paths by which bill can reach a committee. So how at all a particular bill, so please remember that not all the bills that are being passed by the parliament in totality are brought to the discussion for a committee. Only a few bills are those that come up or are brought to the committee, be it now the standing committee, be it the select committee or the joint parliamentary committee. So only some bills are brought for further discussion by the committee, and not all of them are brought. So actually, let's understand as to what are the ways or when does a committee examine a bill? What are the situations in which a bill may be referred to a committee to be examined? So there are three broad paths by which a bill can reach a committee. Firstly, when the minister piloting the bill recommends it. So here it says that the very first thing that can be done is the very minister who actually came up with this bill, he discusses upon it, or he actually recommends that this bill should be given to this particular committee for further discussion. Now here an example is given that last year Ravi Shankar Prasad recommended the personal data protection bill to a joint committee. Then the second way through which a bill can be brought to a committee for further discussion is when the presiding officer of the house. Now here, in case if we talk about the Rajya Sabha, it will be the chairman of the Rajya Sabha, so who is the home minister by default, vice president, sorry, by default. And then if we talk about the Lok Sabha, then it's the speaker of Lok Sabha. So whenever the presiding officer of the house decides that the bill should be referred to any committee. So in the last Lok Sabha, Venkaiah Naidu sent 8 bills to departmentally related committees. So as we know that Venkaiah Naidu is the Vice President of India and is also the Chairman of the Rajya Sabha. So he had brought 8 bills to departmentally related committees for further discussion. And thirdly, when a bill passed by one house is sent by other house to its select committee. So if one house has passed the bill, so it is sent by the other house to its own select committee for further scrutiny. So sending the bill results in two things. Now, two things can happen once a bill has been sent for further discussion to any of the committees. Firstly, the committee undertakes detailed examination of the bill and invites comments and suggestions from experts, stakeholders, and citizens. So this is one of the most basic things that must be done for further discussion. And one of the most important things that is done now, finally, is that the committee submits a report. So usually 3 months is the time that has been the committee takes, but maybe it may also extend further. And these reports, these recommendations are basically recommendatory in nature and not mandatory in nature. That is why you must have seen there are various committees, like we have the Rangarajan committee, which is related to the Reserve Bank of India, that is economy. Then we have the Verma committee, which is related to fundamental duties. Then we have various other committees, like this. We have the Bhaskar committee. There are various committees. So there are recommendations that come from various committees. Now, in finality, these recommendations may or may not be included, but generally they are included. But yes, they can be skipped since they're only recommendatory in nature. So if we talk about the current scenario, in the current Lok Sabha, 17 bills have been referred to committees, and in the 16th Lok Sabha, 25% of bills were referred, as against 71% in 15th Lok Sabha and 60% in the 14th Lok Sabha. So we can see that this referring of bills to the committees has been declining now, which probably, maybe it shows a kind of unilateral action of the parliament, maybe, which should not be the case, because in wherein the expert opinion is required, bills should be referred to the committees for further scrutiny. So yes, this was all for the day, and this we have for the news in flash. Rosh Hashanah is the head of the year in Hebrew. So for the Jews it is. The world's Jewish communities celebrated Rosh Hashanah, the traditional new year. So it is observed on the first day of the month of Tishrei on the Hebrew calendar, that is September, or the October in common calendar. And the earliest reference to Rosh Hashanah is in a rabbinic text, comes from the Mishnah, which is a Jewish text dating back to AD 200. So basically, the only thing that we need to remember here is Rosh Hashanah is a new year for the Jews or the Hebrew community. So this was all for today. We hope it was an informative session for you. Stay tuned with LawSikho for such more sessions to come. Thank you so much.